It always block the audio.
It's it's actually mine, but I don't know how it came on.
No
Um,
worries. I mean, I can stop it if you want me to stop the recording. It doesn't matter. It's going to be recorded and put on
Yeah.
Facebook
o-
regardless.
okay.
You want me to stop it?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, there she is.
That is crazy. That's what happens when you don't know it.
It came, now it went away.
Okay, good.
Good.
Okay, so we are live right now. Thank you for anybody who has joined us this morning. We have three wonderful speakers today. Randy is one of our care partners who has joined us this afternoon. And we wanted to talk a little bit about communication in dementia. And there are a few different aspects of communication that we wanted to focus on, but maybe to really center most of the conversation around communicating with our loved ones who actually have this diagnosis or who have maybe a suspected diagnosis, but no formal diagnosis. So maybe I can just have each of you introduce yourselves first, maybe your name, who you cared for or are caring for, um, and yeah, why you think this topic is important.
Who
I'll,
wants to
I'll,
go?
I'll start.
Okay.
My name is Ann Lister. I cared for my mother, Helen Bass, for 10 years, and I am a hospice chaplain, so that helped me a little, but anyway, it was still a challenge. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Um, I'm looking forward to this time together.
Well, my name is Randy Perdue, and I'm a caregiver for Ted Belmont, who was recently diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, Parkinson's. And let's see what else. And basically, I recently found out about this program, this organization, and I'm basically at a loss. I mean, I'm learning as I go along, as I guess everyone who's involved with this. The idea of getting input from other caregivers is a godsend. So that's why I'm here.
Hi, my name is Laura Lamb. I apologize for my video background. I'm a little bit technically challenged on my phone. I am a caregiver for my parents. I've taken care of them in my home full time for 3.5 years now. My father has early onset dementia. My mother has advanced stage Alzheimer's, and she's on hospice and bedbound. And we are in Houston, Texas.
So am I.
So am I.
Me
We all are.
too. Well, hi, I'm Dr. Mirna Arroyo. I'm a brain health researcher, and I call myself a recovering caregiver. I cared for my dad who passed away from Alzheimer's disease in 2012. I've been um, I've been a caregiver my entire life, and now um, I'm caring for my mom. I'm long distance. I live in Houston, but she lives in Puerto Rico. And I'm still caring for my mom, who is showing the first, although she doesn't have a formal diagnosis, she is showing symptoms of Lewy body dementia. So we're working on that.
Wonderful. Well, we are so grateful to have everyone here, anyone joining from Facebook in the moment and watching this retrospectively. Thank you. Thank you for making the time for this. I think it's super important as a topic to explore because so many of the most challenging behaviors that we see in dementia are really, I think, rooted in a lack of understanding or a misunderstanding of what motivates those behaviors and how to actually communicate with our loved ones to navigate and to manage those behaviors. So I have a few questions that I wanted to start us off with. And I'd like to try to be mindful of time to leave maybe about 15 minutes at the end for questions from the audience, for questions from Randy on this topic. But what I wanted to kick us off with is actually if each of you could talk a little bit about how you communicated with your loved one. And for those who are caring for more than one loved one, feel free to share anecdotes in the care of either, how you communicated with them before they started showing symptoms of dementia, like what was that dynamic like? And did those old patterns, um, did they help or hinder you when you were then having to adapt to the changes that you needed to make and how you communicated with your loved one as they advanced with their disease?
I will go. I came from an alcoholic family system, and so I'm the first child. And I was the mommy daddy pleaser. I was the hero. And so that is how I communicated with my mother before she started showing signs of dementia. Whatever she wanted me to do, whenever, no matter what I had to do, I was a mother pleaser. And so and if I didn't do it right, it created frustration in me. And so that's how I communicated with my mother before she started showing signs.
And how did that change? And as your mom started to have symptoms of dementia, how did it not change? How was it, a hindrance or a help?
Actually, I call myself 30 years under construction because over 30 years I surrendered to the God of my understanding and I became a spiritual practitioner. So I've done a lot of soul work, SOUL work. I've been through a lot of counseling and I have grown considerably. So it was really a beautiful thing during the process of taking care of mother because I realized how important it was that I had done my work because there were remnants that were still there because it's progressive. And so I still had some stuff hid away in pockets that were triggered based on how mother responded to me. So when she began to really progress and I was no longer able to perform like I had been, and her mood started changing, and then she became bedridden, and my husband and I were trying to figure out how to change her diaper. I got really, really frustrated, and so what happened? This is the straw, as they say, that broke the camel's back. That's a terrible uh, analogy, but this is what happened. This is when I knew that it was time. Um, as a result of her response, I lost it. I went to the living room. I sat down and I cried a gutted cry. And Spirit said to me during that cry, you have been taking care of her for since you were 5 years old. So it's time to let her go. So I immediately got on the phone because she was in hospice. She still is in hospice, but I got on the phone and I called the social worker to see when I could schedule mother for respite. And so she was able to go to respite for 4 days. And I realized I called my siblings and I said, I can't do this anymore because they were not in a position to help. My sister and brother-in-law live in Albuquerque. My younger brother, he lives in Dallas. They all have their issues, and so I have always been it because I was the performer. I was the hero, and so when I sat down, cried, called the social worker, called them, I started looking for a personal care home that felt like we could afford and that I could trust. because being a hospice chaplain, I've been in many personal care homes and I've seen some awful stuff. And so we were very, very blessed to find a personal care home for Mother.
Mirna, go ahead. You're muted.
Yeah, I wanted to point out something that Anne kind of touched upon. Dementia has this virtue to bring out the best and the worst in the caregiver, especially when it comes to dealing with our childhood traumas, our childhood issues, our family dynamics. It brings out everything that was there that, it's like the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, and especially in the first, in the earlier stages of the disease, the the dynamic of communicating with the patient can actually bring out the hold on, give me a second. Sorry. Um, the the behaviors that happen, especially in the earlier stages of dementia, can be so triggering of our, I identify with Anne in the sense that I was the youngest child, and my parents, I mean, my dad was the love of my life, but our family dynamics were very complicated and dysfunctional for a long time. So when the my dad started showing these, you know, weird, uncanny behaviors, um, my mom was not having any of it. I wanted to please everybody, so I assumed a care, and I was young at the time, so I had no, you know, I was in my 20s, so I had no idea how to manage these issues at the time. So it really completely destroyed the family dynamics.
Did you even know that it was dementia at that point, or were you just floundering trying to figure out his behavior?
I we think, well, in the first few, maybe, the first few stages, we didn't know, but I used to be a health education major, and at one point in my one of my classes, somebody came to give a talk on, signs and symptoms of dementia, and it just boom, just it was like putting a neon sign on my dad's behavior. So my ex-husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, was in his first year of med school as well. So we understood that, this was very, consistent with dementia, with Alzheimer's disease. So, but nobody else understood, that this was a real thing. Um, and now that I am in the other, on the other side of the coin, and I'm done with my dad, and now starting with my mom, who shows a completely different set of symptoms. um I'm also experiencing complex family dynamics, but I'm obviously better equipped. As I said, I'm a recovering caregiver. I've been, been in therapy, and I've been, you know, getting support. I'm a researcher, so I do this for a living. So I'm in a position to understand that this is, part of the dynamics of dealing with dementia, communicating denial of the family, denial of the patient. Uh, my dad didn't understand. He knew that something was wrong with him. He just wasn't in the space to understand that something was wrong with him. I'm having these conversations with my mom at this point, and she is, I have more patience. I'm in a, I have better, boundary setting skills. So these, so I can have these conversations, at this point in my life. Um, so, it's a completely, a whole other ballgame. But Anne is right. This is a disease that it just brings out a whole lot of issues within ourselves as caregivers and our family dynamics as well.
Laura, I know that you're at a stage right now with your mom where the verbal communication is probably still it's pretty limited. How is it that you are able to communicate with her? How is it that your daughter is able to communicate with her? Your father is able to communicate with her? And how has that really changed over time? Like I know her experience on this journey has been really tumultuous, the way it started. With her falls and with COVID. So how has that changed over the last couple of years, during which the disease has progressed for her?
Yeah. Before I started caring for my parents, our relationship was good. Communication was good. Now with my mom, we've noticed when she's sundowning and she's agitated, she reverts to speaking Cantonese. She'll yell at me in Cantonese. So I'm not sure. Maybe that was the first language that she learned. She can speak Mandarin, Cantonese, Teochew, and Vietnamese. Um, I will speak to her in Teochew, and she can still nod if she understands, like, yes or no, she'll nod. Sometimes she does respond very short, one word responses. My daughter speaks to her in English, and she kind of just stares at her, kind of a blank stare. But she does still respond to her occasionally in English as well. One word, two words. But her verbalization has been very limited lately. She will just kind of stare at us or stare into space. Her eyes are open, but we can see it just seems like she's not there completely anymore. But when she does have her lucid moments, still she'll respond in different languages, usually Cantonese. She doesn't really respond in English anymore, even though she can speak English as a second language. So it's definitely been interesting watching her change over 3.5 years and how verbal she used to be. I'll watch old videos that I took on my phone, which I'm glad I did, of my mom's interactions with my daughter, and she'll speak English. They could have a conversation in English, and now that is not there anymore. They cannot converse in English anymore because my mom doesn't respond.
It's very interesting though what you're saying, because one, multilingualism, there's a lot of literature that suggests that multilingualism can be a protective factor for progressing of dementia symptoms. One, and second, it's interesting, and I'm saying this, for everybody that's watching us on Facebook. Dementia, Alzheimer's dementia is sort of losing your memory in reverse. So we lose the things that we learned later in life, and then we end up losing them, like backwards. So the oldest things are the ones that stay in our memory. So she probably learned Cantonese at a very young age. So
Yeah.
and a lot of people, I don't think that a lot of people out there know, who haven't had the experience of dealing with a dementia patient, understand, that this is something that happens.
Yeah. Like I'll try and speak to my mom in English when my daughter's home, so that we can all understand what's being said. And when she doesn't respond, I will translate the same thing into, there's some phrases that I can speak in Mandarin, and my mom will nod. So I try and speak in as many different languages as I can with the words that I do know, so I can figure out if my mom is actually receiving the information. And sometimes her eyes will open wider, or sometimes she'll nod. So it's interesting to see when you're speaking to her in English, there's no response. But when I'm trying to say similar words in, a Chinese dialect, she will respond. So that's been interesting for us, especially at night when we're saying goodnight to her. My daughter's about to leave for college. She'll tell my mom stuff in English. Grandma, I'm leaving for college soon, and things like that. My mom will just stare at her. So I'll translate that for my mom, and it seems like she understands it. when it's in Chinese, but I don't know because she doesn't respond.
Yeah, this question of like people who have multiple languages is interesting. It was it came up for me in a really I think I don't know, kind of sobering way. My grandmother speaks predominantly Korean. She used to speak more English than she does now, but still she never really spoke that much English. She didn't have to. My grandfather did everything for her. He spoke English and Korean. Um, but yeah, I was with her, I don't know, maybe this was about a year and a half ago, and she was saying goodbye to me, and she started saying something in Japanese. And for people who don't know that history, the Koreans were colonized by the Japanese in her time when she was a child, and they actually forced them not to speak their language in any public setting, in public universities, out in public. And so the only way they were able to retain their native language was in their homes. So she spoke Korean in her home. But again, because that was one of her earlier languages, I think as her dementia has advanced, and she's still actually mild to moderate at this point. She's fortunately been able to kind of stretch out the time over which she's stayed in the fairly early stages of the disease. But still, she has had some reverting to what was more comfortable for her. But the interesting thing, it was really apparent in that interaction, which was very brief, because she accidentally spoke in Japanese and then she got very upset with herself. And I think it's because she has a really, troubled relationship with that language, given the history. And she was not happy with having spoken that, but that's what came to her. And I didn't even understand her because I don't speak Japanese. I understand maybe about 80% of the Korean that is spoken, with my parents and my grandparents, but I don't understand any Japanese. And so it was a weird moment for me also. And as the disease has advanced also, I just, because I don't speak enough Korean and she doesn't really speak English, I have noticed that I just have to use body language, facial expressions, being just kind of soft and compassionate, like, looking her in the eye, holding her hand. That's like the most I can do as kind of expressions of care, and to ensure that she has a feeling of safety around me, where we are. Yeah. So I wanted to actually go on to our second question, which has to do with, and when we touched upon this a little bit, it has to do with what we do when our loved ones become frustrated, agitated, sad, and maybe they no longer have the words to really express that. Like, what is motivating that, like their behavior? How do you manage those situations?
I want to start on that question because I was exactly going to touch upon that. I wish, again, I started caring for my dad when I was 22, 23. And I wish I had the patience and the skills that I have now at 50, because as he understood that he had something was wrong. And even after he got his diagnosis, he became, he denied it for the longest time. Um, so that was a big part of, his issues. And he became really frustrated on the things that, like your grandma, talking Japanese. She probably understood that that was something that is not her, you know. And I wish I had at that time. I had the sense of, you know, saying, "Puppy, it's okay." We all go through that. Now with my mom, I get less impatient. I do get impatient sometimes, and that's natural, as I said. It brings out the best and the worst of us, and that is okay. But one thing that I've learned through my own therapeutic process is to learn how to normalize behavior, my behavior and other people's behavior as well, and be forgiving and compassionate. And my mom now gets extremely frustrated at her mobility limitations. And she's gonna kill me if she sees this. So but we've had our issues because I mean in the beginning she was like I would catch her going up a ladder to clean up the fans or wash the windows and stuff like that. So I would just like oh, but now and she gets really frustrated because she sees herself not being able to do the things that she did. And we have to go through this process of saying it's okay. Getting old is part of nature. I mean, I used to go dancing in my 30s and I would just stay up all night and go to, get to the office on Monday, the next day at 9 o'clock. But now in my 50s, I go out until 1 in the morning and I need 3 days to recover. So that's part of, growing older, not growing old, growing older, so we make jokes and I'm like, Mom, you gotta understand that you're no spring chicken, neither am I. We gotta take care of ourselves because these she has my brother-in-law, God bless him, he for her 80th birthday he bought her a shirt that says 1936 all original parts and she was so proud of that. She was like, oh my God, I can't believe I made it to 80 with all my bones intact. She can't say that anymore, but she is, she sees that and she, we have to, when we have these conversations, I talk a lot about gratitude, being grateful to be alive. And for a person who's 88, you are extremely healthy. That you have your mobility issues, well, we gotta get around that, but you are healthy, you have a house, you have a family that loves you, so we, I work on getting her to see the good things that she still has. So being compassionate and empathic, um and forgiving, I think it's the one of my best strategies for communicating with my mom.
And you're muted.
So I learned how to redirect when I was working in hospice. And I also tuned into my mother's gifts. So my mother is a singer, and so am I. And I would, as in redirecting, I would say, Mother, do you remember Amazing Grace? Do you remember how it goes? And I'd start singing it, and she would join in because music, from what my understanding is, music is the last to go. And so Mother remembered all of the words to Amazing Grace. And I would, her perfect alto pitch, my soprano, and after we finished singing, she would be in a different mood and do whatever it is I needed her to do. And so that's how I was able to do it, is redirect.
Laura, I'm not sure you have faced this as much in terms of your mom putting up a fight. I don't know if you have had the experience with your dad, who's maybe, kind of early stage.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yes,
yeah.
it's interesting with both parents. So with my mom at advanced stage where she is right now, the feeding and the fluids are a little bit more challenging. I have to puree her food, pocket food. Sometimes she'll say no, she won't drink, and I have to feed her with a straw. She sometimes won't eat. So when I'm trying to feed her, or my dad's trying to feed her, and she says no, and my dad keeps pressing and pressing, pressing. I'm saying, no, you have to stop. You have to step away, give her space, and 5 minutes later, come back, and then she'll eat. Or sometimes she'll pocket her food for literally an hour. We can't get her to open her mouth for an hour, but we know she has food because we could see it in her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to tickle her, I'm trying to do whatever, and I have to tickle her to the point where she gets angry. And in order for her to yell at me, she has to spit out the food. Or, I mean, sometimes she'll choke on it before she spits it out, but then she gets it out, and then we step away for 5 minutes, and then we come back, and she'll eat or drink again. So it's really just trial and error and trying to figure out what will motivate them to do something to, in order to continue feeding her or having her drink. And sometimes she'll drink really fast. She'll drink her coconut water, 16 ounces in 10 minutes, and it's no problem. But sometimes it'll take me an hour and a half to get her to drink because she'll take a sip and hold it in her mouth for 10 minutes. And it's very, very challenging. Really tests my patience. With my father, he's still mobile, but his memory is not always there. So every day he will ask me the same questions over and over and over again. Did you pay this bill? Call this week. It's O'Connor and Associates about the appraised value of my home. Did you call them? Did you pay them? And it that tests my patience too. So I'm in a situation where both of my parents are in different stages and just have to pray for a lot of patience, and I have to step away because how I take care of my mom and react to my mom is different than how I take care of my dad and react to him. So it just requires so much patience out of you, like patience that you never even knew you had, and patience that you have to continue to pray for. And some days you're just going to lose it, I'm just like praying to God all the time. Forgive me for yelling at my dad today. I just tired answering the same questions over and over and over. And my dad has instances, bless him, he realizes his memory is not what it used to be. And he'll say stuff like, gosh, I'm just losing my memory, or I just can't remember, or, he'll, in a way that's derogatory to him. And I'll tell him that it's okay, Dad, like do things mentally that will help your brain remember things. Look at your affirmation cards, look at things, and then try to remember what they said. Like do some brain exercises on with yourself mentally. And the biggest challenge for us is nobody really calls and nobody comes to visit them anymore, and that's okay. I understand everybody's busy, and our schedule's kind of chaotic too, even though we try to have a routine for my mom. So it's hard because if a visitor wants to come at 9 in the morning, I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't come at 9 in the morning because my mom is still sleeping. And if we interrupt that sleep pattern for her, even though she goes back to sleep, she will wake up and the rest of her day will not be good. She'll be sundowning a lot and agitated a lot. She needs 14 to 17 hours of sleep to be okay during the limited hours that she is awake. So, again, I've had to turn away visitors in the beginning if they wanted to come early in the morning. So I think for my dad, the lack of social interaction and lack of conversation with anybody other than me is causing his decline too, I feel like, because he used to be a social butterfly, used to go out to lunch with his friends every day, used to go volunteer at the temple every day and go buy his little oranges every day. He had activities that kept him active physically and mentally and supported emotionally. And now he doesn't have that anymore. His only purpose task is to help me take care of my mom, help me feed my mom. And I think he's grateful that my mom is still alive and we get to do that, but also he has no life anymore. He has no independence anymore. I don't let him drive anymore. He can't go out unless I know who's taking him, where he's going. And I know he's very frustrated because he feels like his life is very controlled, but it's also for his protection, so that he's safe, so that he walks with a cane and he doesn't fall, so that whoever is taking him wherever he's going understands there's a responsibility. Okay, I need to walk with him side by side, make sure he's okay, he doesn't trip, doesn't fall. So that's why my dad doesn't go out very often. So it's very challenging because, I'm in the middle. And I have a daughter too, that she's leaving for college in a few days. And I'm like, well, Am I going to be able to go and move her because my mom's, recovering from pneumonia? So that's another thing. Her lungs are weak right now and she's sundowning more right now. So it's just so many things that come into play when you're in this situation, and you just have to pray for a lot of patience, a lot of patience.
I wanted to point out something that Laura mentioned. Two things. First of all, I've actually heard health professionals say that dementia is a benevolent condition because people forget, and that is the wrong thing to say. It I don't know. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my dad was fully aware that something was wrong in the first stages of dementia, and it was heartbreaking. Not just for me, but for him to understand that he was going to lose his mind. In the 90s, there was not a lot of information either.
Mhm.
So, it is in those, especially in those first stages, the patient is fully aware of
Yeah.
what is going on, and they understand that their behavior is off. And they feel when they are being ostracized, when they are being neglected, and when they are feeling like they are being a burden on other people.
Mm.
So trust me, it's not beautiful. It's not a beautiful panorama for them. And
Yeah.
second, and this is probably one of my very favorite areas of research. um Social isolation is fundamental for Alzheimer's disease. um Studies, a lot of studies, including mine, have touched upon this, the importance of maintaining social connections, especially in the earlier stages of dementia, and especially my focus is on the Latino communities, but in communities who are family oriented, it is especially important to keep that social connectedness. It helps fire up the neurons. It helps reduce stress. It there's a whole bunch of benefits to maintaining social connectedness. So it's very understandable that your dad is, when now that he's feeling like he can't do his normal activities, it is, it does have an impact on his, brain function.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because when Ted first had started getting these symptoms, I mean, everything was sort of going okay. The beginning of the year, January, February, March came and boom, he was in bed for like 22 hours, you know. And now he used to sleep fairly a lot, but not like that. And his behavior wasn't too extreme at that point. But at one point, after 2 weeks of that, I took him aside and I said, "Do you want to die?" And he said, "Yes." And I lost it. I mean, I was devastated by realizing that number one, I didn't think that 2024 was going to be the year I'd be dealing with this because Ted's dad died of Alzheimer's. So it's a matter of like, okay, well, what do we got here? And then it had to be finding out what's going on. But he was very aware. Um, I think his staying in bed for the first month he was in bed was a realization that he was losing it. That there was something wrong. And I and wanting to die because of that, feeling like he was going the route of his dad and all that. So it's a matter of convincing him that we need to get a neurologist and all of that. And so we finally did. And he's been diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, Parkinson's, early stages. But it's and so the sleeping has finally changed. Now that he's on medication and stuff, it's beginning to come around. We took him off a lot of medication. First thing we did, took him off a ton of medications he was on. We cut his medications in half from 15 to 8. That helped a lot. I had to deal with a very manic phase where he wanted to go into hospice. And then when he didn't go, he kept saying, oh, well, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. You know, we actually talked to a hospice nurse. You know, we went down to a hospice place and all that. We came home and he says, I don't want to stay there. It wasn't clean enough for me. I said, okay, that's fine. So it was that kind of stuff. Then there was a suicide attempt.
Mm.
He was in the hospital for 3 days for observation. He had a sitter in the room. Then they wanted to send him to a place after that. And I looked it up and I went on Yelp and I looked at some of the reviews and I said, no, what's another place? They gave me 2 other places. They were all the same. They sounded like Snake Pit. That's my interpretation from some of the things I read. And I told them, I said, don't you have something better? I said, I'm willing to pay for something better for him. You know, these are the only places that are authorized to send him. I says, well, then don't send him there. Send him home. I said, I will take care of him. But I don't want him to go into a place where there's going to be screaming people or maybe people who are unattended, which is going to throw him into a worse situation mentally than that. So I took him home and we basically finally got the diagnosis. He's more lucid lately. He has his good days and his bad, but he's the worst of it when I'm with him is if he'll tell me something, and then I'll ask him about what he just said because he wasn't specific, and I'll say, well, what were you referring to with that? And he'll get upset with me because I didn't get it. And I'll say, but I'm not a mind reader, Buzz. I need to know. You didn't mention who this was about, you know. So it's things like that. And then the same thing of asking about something many, many times coming back. Did you call this person? Did you call this person? Did you call, you know, and yes, yeah, that kind of thing. But his progression was very slow. He had a catastrophic accident 5.5 years ago. He went out to Costa Rica for dental implants. This was his 3rd visit. I had a feeling of foreboding when he went down there. I don't know why, but I did. The second day he was down there, 5:30 in the morning, the phone rings and I get a call saying, I've fallen down an elevator shaft. The ambulance is on the way. Click. And I'm in Houston. He's in Costa Rica. And I'm going, this isn't real. You're dreaming. This isn't real. This is not happening. And then finally, when I got a grip on things and I was able to do it, I had to find out, well, finally got him back here, got him into the hospital, 12 surgeries, rehab. He's disabled. So that was one thing. But 5.5 years ago from that, he had really gone through rehab and he really pushed himself. He's really doing very well. What's happened now with this situation is part of him has just given up. It's too much to deal with this leg, to deal with the injury, to deal with the daily painkillers, all that. So dealing with that extra component of his just being tired of it all, of dealing with it all, plus the fact that he realizes he's got issues. Yeah. So lately he's been okay. We've got him scheduled for physical therapy coming up in September, and he's on the list for psychiatry. That his doctor, his neurologist, gave us a referral. But my dealing with his issues has been my learning curve because I've gone through everything from despair, crying daily, which was good because I let it out when I feel like I have to let it out. Let it out, and I feel better, and I can move on after that. My therapist has helped me with that. I got back into private therapy again, just to help me deal with all of these things. And then just learning how to be not take things personally and to be kinder, realize where it's coming from him it's not directed at me. You know, there's another thing going on there. And so it's been a lot of learning on how to listen and pull back, realize what my feelings are going through, and maybe pull back, not address them through my feelings, my emotions, but to address them through a little more of an intellectual place, On the other hand, I realize also making eye contact, being affectionate, works wonders. And he will come to me and says, "Give me a hug." I need a hug. And yeah, we do that. So it's those things I realize are they're really helpful. Things that are hard for me is, getting to sit down and eat together. Sometimes that's successful. 60% of the time it's not. If we can watch a movie together, maybe once every week or two, that's a big success. You can sit through it. If it's a movie that he really likes, he'll sit through the whole movie with me, So, and he goes to Kroger, and I let him go to Kroger, and he drives around and all that. And I'm, where are you going? Blah, blah, blah. How long are you going to be? And I call him up while he's on the road. How you doing? He'll call me if I'm on the road, So it's been that kind of situation.
Thank you all for all of your contributions to this conversation. I think what is so interesting is that a lot of people probably came to this event thinking they were going to learn very strategic things to do in terms of communication and communicating with a loved one who has dementia that are very technical, right? I think that's what we think of. Like when we are learning skills, it's all about technical things.
They're a magic bullet.
Correct. But
Yeah.
what I think is evident from this conversation is that there is so much about communication, which is fundamentally a way in which you express your own needs, your feelings that, are motivated by those underlying needs. And that is, it's not super clean, right? It's like
Right.
there are all of these different things happening in terms of pre-existing dynamics, in terms of like maybe multiple languages, like there are so many things going on that it's not that simple. And I think really the learning happens through spaces like this, where we can just kind of share our experiences and understand like what is true at the root of all of this for many people. I think, as you said, Ted, as you alluded to, it is really like as people lose their ability to express themselves, what is of fundamental importance to them is like feeling secure, feeling loved, feeling worthy and valid. That's what it is. And, the thing that I've learned from this that is like beyond dementia is that I think at the end of the day, that's what all of us are seeking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is
all
right.
the complex sentences and intellectualizing aside, it's like that's fundamentally what all of us are seeking of each other, for ourselves,
The other morning he said to me, "You're being mean to me. Why are you being mean to me?" Because I was very short with him. And I stopped and I realized he's really telling me something here. You're not being nice to him. And I had to pull back and make an adjustment. But to hear it from him, because there is that sensitivity still to what's going on around him in various levels,
No, and he's not going to lose that, up until the end. That's going to be there like almost to his dying day. And you're gonna, whether he can say it with words or not, when he's feeling sad, emotions are part of the last things to go. So it's, you're gonna see it whether you like it or not. Whether he can express it with words or not, you will see when this person, when they feel uncomfortable or they feel, scared or or cold or hot or whatever. But Donna, I have to say that if we wanted to give people like the magic pill for communicating with dementia patients, we would probably need more than an hour. many hours.
Right.
It's a process, that
Yeah, it is.
it's a long process.
And I think from hearing everybody's experiences, it's also a tailored experience, right?
Yes, it is. It
really
is.
depends on who it is that we're trying to communicate with.
And for those who are listening, that may be listening on Facebook that are at the beginning, one of the things that I didn't include is that when Mother knew that she was forgetting things, she acknowledged it. I am so grateful for that. I lived in Atlanta at the time, and she called me and she said, my memory is going. She said, I went to a church that my church has been going to fellowshipping with for years, and I couldn't find my way back home. And
Mhm.
so I pulled over on the side of the road and I prayed and asked God to take me home. And God did. And so what she started doing is getting her neighbor to go with her to the store so she could find her way back. So when I came back to Houston and we got involved, I found Amazing Place. And this is what I really wanted to share. I don't know if you're familiar with Amazing Place, but Mother went there for 3 years and she called it school. She would ask me, am I going to school today? And she loved her peers and they loved her. She was the star of the show at all the holiday programs when they would sing. The uh, the uh, caregivers would one of the volunteers created a choir. She started a choir, and Mother was normally one of the soloists. And so, getting them involved at the beginning, if you can, is
Right.
really a great thing because the only reason she stopped going to Amazing Places because COVID came on the scene.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I wanted to interject that.
I'm gonna look that up.
Hmm.
It's really
Oh,
good.
my friend Yadira will be very happy. Amazing places, and it's called Amazing Place for a reason.
Yes,
I wish there were more facilities like
yes.
like that,
Hmm.
all around the U.S., especially in Puerto Rico. We need that so badly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
they
here in
do a
Houston,
wonderful job.
we have only two.
Hmm.
They're striking to me. We have two full-time day facilities, adult day facilities for people who have mild to moderate dementia, and they serve on average a few dozen people a day,
Hmm.
and that is for a population of 50,000 people who are estimated to have dementia in Houston.
Wow.
100,000 people who are their caregivers who could use the relief,
Hmm. Hmm.
the support, and we have exactly two centers serving a few dozen.
Wow.
It's just there's such tremendous need. So I wanted to kind of close this off. I don't see that there are any pending questions on where we've shared this on Facebook at this time. But I did have kind of one closing question for us. And this actually has to do with communication. I mean, we've kind of um, briefly talked about this too, not just with our loved ones who have this disease, but how have the ways in which we communicate been transformed, namely in how we communicate with our family, friends, colleagues to ensure that we get the relief that we need and the support that we need in order to continue caring sustainably for our loved ones. So it's still about communication, but it's basically what have we kind of learned from this process that allows us to be better communicators in meeting our own needs as well. Any thoughts there?
For me, I've had to set all of my pride aside and ask for help because self-care is very important to me. And so people that I wouldn't have ordinarily asked to help, I found the courage to ask them and to let them know that I really needed help. And because it was either I got help because I'm 70 years old. And so I was getting closer to 70 and I was like, okay, the old gray mare ain't what she used to be. I'm figure of speech. And so I cannot go on living my life trying to do everything on my own. And so I just asked for help. And it came. I mean, people are so benevolent. it came. I got the help I needed.
Ah, gosh,
Yeah.
that is a hard question for me to answer. Um, it's because it's still very fresh. You know, not my experience has been that sometimes the people who are called to help don't want to do it.
Mm,
And as I said before, family dynamics play a huge role
mhm,
in the process of communicating with family members, you know, about, you know, what, you know, how to do family organization. And those conversations are vital to successfully navigating the complexities of disease.
mhm,
Um, you know, I've learned through this process that one, you know, you have to be self-care is the most important thing for a
mm,
caregiver.
mhm,
And you have to understand what is your limit
mhm,
and draw the line. You know,
mhm,
I can do this and this is what I can humanly do.
mhm,
No more. You know, Donna knows this. I'm still suffering the consequences of, you know, overextending my care
mhm, mhm.
for the last few months, and you know, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, my my daily practice has been practicing the Serenity Prayer.
Mhm, mhm,
I don't know if you've heard about it.
mhm,
You know,
mhm.
ask for serenity to accept the things that I cannot change,
Right.
and get the courage to change the things that I can.
Mhm.
Sometimes I can't change the people around me,
Absolutely.
Okay.
but
Never
I can change. The only thing that I'm in control of is myself.
me.
You know, when I set the boundary that this is what I can humanly do,
Mhm,
you know, if nobody else in my family or nobody else in my circle wants to do this, you know, it's that's not up to me.
right.
You know, I gotta get the help where I can find it.
Mhm,
You know, and as I am mentioned, you know, help will show up. You know,
mhm,
I believe that God provides what you
mhm,
need when you need it.
mhm,
You know, so that's something that you know, but you have to be, as a caregiver, have to be clear in, you know, setting those hard boundaries. This is what I can humanly do,
mhm.
you know, and not overextend yourself, because it's like caregiving is like putting on an oxygen mask in an airplane.
It is.
You're not well.
Mhm,
And I was talking to my mom this morning about this. You know, this is my time to take care of myself,
mhm,
because if I don't do this, I cannot help you. You know, and whether people in your family understand it or not, that's their responsibility. You know, you got to do what you got to do. You
absolutely.
know, and ask for help wherever you can find it.
Mhm, mhm. Yes. Yes.
It's hard. It's hard because you feel that you're dealing with it. You're dealing with it on your own initially. I mean, it's so devastating in the beginning. And but since he got his diagnosis, he doesn't want me to go to our mutual friends and tell them of his situation. So I have to not do that, but figure out a way to let people know in a certain way that what's going on.
Mhm,
I don't want them to go to him and say something that, I mean,
mhm.
it's very dicey.
Right.
I'm trying to basically navigate this in a way that, so I'll have my support system,
Mhm.
but,
Mhm,
that, because that's necessary. And like you said, it could be so draining. I've gone through periods where I've been so exhausted. And then you just hold on and you gotta try and get a good night's sleep and get up and you do it again.
yes, sir. Yeah.
I have to point out that this is not a one person job.
It's
they say that it takes a village to raise a child,
Mm-hmm.
and it also takes a village to take care of somebody with dementia.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
You can't do this.
No,
This is
can't do it
not
alone.
a one person.
Especially as it progresses, I could see that this
Yeah, you can't.
right
You
now.
need a support system in place for yourself, for the patient, but mostly for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's where I struggle the most.
Okay, word in.
Oh, I think that's where I struggle the most because oh,
Love it.
I put
Self
mine in because they would be barking right now at everybody.
Go ahead.
That's where I struggle the most. Because I literally haven't slept since 2021 when I brought my parents into my home because she was still mobile then. And I didn't know how to keep her safe. So she'd get out of bed, and have these little falls. And my body's just acclimated to not sleeping. And now I'm not sleeping because she's pneumonia, and she's coughing in the middle of the night. I have to get up, make sure she's still breathing, make sure she's still alive. Do I have to nebulize her?
Mm.
Struggled to get sleep. I really struggled to take care of myself. And I remember an acquaintance had told me when, we were when she was giving me recommendations for caregivers who she had used in the past, she said, if I could give you a piece of advice right now, I would tell you take care of yourself. I would tell you, she goes, I would look back and brush my teeth more often, take a shower more often. And I totally know how she feels right now. But I just struggle because there's always some
Mm.
go of trying to keep the house clean, which is why my background is blurry right now.
Mm.
The dishes aren't always washed at night. The laundry's not always done. Stuff is just a mess, and I have to let that go, and I have to go lay down. Um, and for the people who are watching this, who have a friend who is a caregiver, and you want to know how to help them, don't ask them how they're doing. Just drop off some groceries at their door and text them and say, I dropped off some groceries.
Mm.
I dropped off some water. I dropped off some fruit. I dropped off a meal, or say, hey, can I come by for an hour and sit with your parents, chat with your dad, keep an eye on your mom so you can take a shower, so you can take a nap, you know?
Mm.
My friend, we've been very, very blessed. We've been so blessed with the village of people who have done that for us, who've dropped groceries off to us, dropped meals off to us, donate to our fundraiser to help me repair my home when we flooded. And there are just no words to express that level of gratitude because I really feel like I'm all alone in this. Aside when my daughter was home and she could help me. But I have texted relatives who I thought would help, and I can see that they've read my text messages and they have not responded. And one of these was when I was in the emergency room with my mom. I had nobody to help me watch my dad, so I'd take my dad with me. During that time, it was still during COVID, so I had to leave my dad in the car, and I had to find somebody to try and come get my dad, bring him back to my house, watch my dad for me while I'm still in the emergency room with my mom. And nobody answered that call. You will go through a lot of really tough times, and you're going to really feel if you are a caregiver in this journey. And you're going to need people at 3 a.m. and you're going to need people at 3 p.m. and nobody's going to show up. And it's okay. You're going to make it. You're going to figure it out. And you're going to need people, and they are going to show up.
Mm.
And for me, my faith has really kept me going.
Mm.
Pray every day. When I wake up, I'm thankful I'm still alive. My daughter's still alive. My mom's still alive. My dad's still alive. I just give gratitude to be able to wake up. I give gratitude that I still have a roof over my head, even though half of my home is in disrepair right now. It's really just what has kept going. There's no magic formula, you know. I'm thankful my mom has to because she lived her life in high stress all the time. And now that she doesn't remember anything, she's very at peace. You know, nothing stresses her out anymore. She doesn't worry about anything anymore because she can't remember. And that's kind of the silver lining with her disease. So, my best advice is if you can look for little things you're grateful for, even though things are still so hard, you'll be able to get through one day to the next, and it could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. You just don't know. So I've been living my days lately like it might be my last day with mom, you know. Not I'm thinking my mom will go first, but I don't know. It might be my last day with dad too, you know. So it's hard. You go through a roller coaster every day, roller coaster of emotions, you know. You're tired, then you're angry, then you're tired, then you're grateful, then you're sad.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay, you know. I probably should see a therapist.
Uh,
I do have a
yeah.
friend that does emotion code for me, so that really helps me a lot. But yeah.
I'm laughing here because I just came back from Puerto Rico and I spent a month and I actually got sick in Puerto Rico and I
Mm.
was like I went there and I was putting out fires every day, you know, with the house, you know, taking my mom to the doctor, you know, all of these things, which I had sort of forgotten, you know, because when you're long distance, you're kind of less involved physically
Mm-hmm.
and emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
But being there was, I mean, it just brought back all, you know, flooding all of these emotions. And you know, I became, you know, my energy was so charged, you know, and I hear Laura and it just reminded me, you know, how exhausting, you know, and sometimes you feel like this is so unfair.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
one thing that has probably two things, you know, and I don't know if you guys want to share a little bit more about this, but two things helped me probably have been the biggest game changers in, you know, my entire caregiving history. One has been increasing my faith, which when I mean, I wasn't going to church when I started caring for my dad, and you know, so believing in, you know, in that a higher power has control of everything that is going on, you know, and learning how to live one day at a time was so important, you know, to overcome the challenges that I went with my dad first and now with my mom. And second, gratitude, you know, having
Mm-hmm.
an attitude of gratitude every day. Um, when when something that probably a lot of people don't understand is that time is limited.
Mm-hmm.
You know, humans are, you know, have an expiration date that we don't know when you know we're going to expire.
Mm-hmm.
So but having somebody with any type of dementia in any stage reminds us that there is a moment when this person will no longer be there. So when you start seeing that your time with this human being that you love is limited, the time takes a whole, you know, this relationship takes a whole other, you know,
Yeah.
connotation. And then you start being grateful and you start seeing the good things in, you know, you take accountability for every moment that you spent with them,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and getting the most out of that relationship, you know, and being grateful because this person is still there. And I think those when I started seeing my relationship with my dad, which was, I mean, he was the love of my life. I mean, I'm still his little girl, you know, and for me, the first few years of my dad's disease were so heartbreaking to see. You know, it took a toll on my physical health. It took a toll on my mental health. It took a toll on my marriage, on my career, you know, in every aspect of my life. But then I started practicing those two things. And I think that my entire caregiving experience changed.
Mhm.
And those last few years of my dad's life, to this day, 12 years later, probably the biggest satisfaction that I have of having been a caregiver for him were those years where I was grateful every single day that I had it.
Mm.
And that made a huge difference.
Thank you very much for sharing, Mirna and Laura. And Randy as well. We've kind of gone a few minutes over here. I just wanted to actually continue down that theme of gratitude and say that I'm very grateful to have had kind of the breadth of experience and perspective in this space. I think the kinds of events that we run are pretty distinct. Oh, let me maybe mute. Okay. Are kind of distinct in that they're participatory. We really do enjoy people from our caregiving community to join us in these conversations. We love for there to be a diversity of perspectives and experiences represented, because I think that helps anyone who comes to this. And, you know, each of us is distinct. Each of the people that we're caring for is distinct. And so it's nice to see our experiences reflected in the experiences of many other people. Yeah, I hope that folks were able to learn a bit about the complexities of communication in dementia, both in how we communicate with our loved ones with this disease and how we communicate with other people in our lives who are, you know, going to have to show up to support us, to relieve us. This cannot be done alone. And I think we do have to be a bit intentional if we don't already have that support built in, because we have a large family that's very active, and you know, we have to be more intentional about building that, about expanding those natural support systems. Our caregiving spaces that are weekly, every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 3 and 6 to 7 p.m. Central Time, those are English speaking spaces, and we have a Spanish speaking space from 11 to noon. They're much like this. The conversations are facilitated conversations. They're with our community team. I'm often there. I'm also a support caregiver in addition to being a neurologist. And then we have people joining from all different professional backgrounds, all different caregiving experiences, cultural heritages. And it is really rich. It is really healing. You will learn a lot in terms of resources. You heard everything here today that I just mentioned. And this is a lot like what that is like. So please do look into that. Go to our website and check out the opportunity to subscribe with us to access those spaces. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you all for being our speakers. It was amazing. Yeah, have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you all.
Thank you.